Join me in welcoming Ruby Gupta ma'am, India's crime fiction writer, an academician, an educationist, as well as a popular contributor in the news media industry. She's the best-selling author of 9 books. She has been honored as the International Writer in Residence at the International Agatha Christie Festival. She is also an awardee of the GSE USA by Rotary International and is the recipient of the Pratibha Samman Award in Journalism. We are very happy to have you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please. In conversation with Ruby ma'am, we have Dr. Shachi Negi, an academician, poet, artist, and columnist. She's a full-time academician of English literature and has also been a regular anchor for Doordarshan and was part of research documentaries. She actively conducts workshops on theatre, personality development, and Sahaj Yoga, for which a lot of praise has poured in from Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports and Garhwal Scouts. Welcome, ma'am. For chairing this session, we have Bijoya ma'am, an educationist, translator, and writer, working ceaselessly to make the world aware more and more about the Khasi culture. She's the writer of Shadow Men, set in her native Shillong, and was nominated for the Rabindranath Tagore Literary Prize for 2020. She has translated many books written in Khasi into English. Some of the translated works are The Teachings of Elders, Khasi Myths, Legends and Folktales. Her short stories have been published by Sahitya Academy and Institute of Folklore Studies, Bhopal. We are here for the book discussion on The Secret of Leifeng Pagoda, a well-researched suspense thriller inspired by true events of the mysterious deaths of Indian nuclear scientists. The book is being also adapted on screen by Almighty Motion Pictures. Without any delay, let's commence with the session.
Thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank the Valley Awards for giving me this privilege of launching this book, a very, very exciting book. And I congratulate Rupi Gupta for writing a superb thriller. This book is not only a thriller, but it gives you information, and the information that you get from this book is so relevant. So it's based on true events.
That's right.
Yes, on true events, and it begins with these mysterious deaths in the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. So there's this guy, he goes for a walk and he never comes back. And he's never ever walked out of the campus. And this was his first walk out of the campus. There was a hit and run accident and there were no clues. And the police just could not solve the case. And so many other mysterious deaths occurred this way. So this book begins with a bang. And you can't stop thinking what is going to happen. This book, and then eventually, it becomes very eerie because you feel that there's danger lurking around. There's so many deaths which are not solved by the police, and yet we know that it's very dangerous. It's taking place in a center which has got high security. And then we move from continent to continent, westwards up to America, and we learn about the CIA. And then eastwards, we go to China. So I'd like to invite Dr. Shachi Negi to converse with her about this very exciting thriller, a very relevant topic, and it really makes you feel very eerie because it can happen anytime, and it's happening. So let's begin the talk.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would say that's an honor that I'm sitting beside best-selling author, Dr. Ruby Gupta. Ma'am, before we start conversing and talking about this novel, I would like to also talk, because I know you since 2009, and I've started my journey, my teaching journey, academics journey, under the mentorship of ma'am. So a question out of curiosity, because I know you are a person of deep philosophy. A spiritual person, and in fact, you've started your first novel. The first novel you have written, 2009, was Maya. So it was a mystical novel, and a lot of spiritualism, philosophical things, and queries about the questions and the resolutions of the life is being given, and how this came, the journey from writing from mystical novels to writing the murder mysteries. So it's very interesting. So I would like to start from this question.
Journey as a writer.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I'm so happy to be here. It's indeed a great honor for me to be on this platform and for my book to be launched by the Valley of Words. My previous murder mystery was also launched at the Valley of Words, so I feel blessed to be here. And first, let me begin by thanking Bijoya ma'am for giving such a fantastic introduction to my latest novel, which is The Secret of Leifeng Pagoda. It couldn't have been said better than what you have said. You have given the entire gist of the novel, the way it spans continents, from America to India, and then to China and back, and all the entire gamut of things. She brought in bark. So Bijoya ma'am has read my novel intensely, I can see that. And words of appreciation from her are indeed heartening for me. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and you deserve it.
Thank you so much, Bijoya ma'am. Now, coming to Shachi's question, which is a complex question, and I'll try and answer it quickly. Yes, I have been mentoring Shachi, and I know her since donkey's years. She's worked in my department. So yes, I began with Maya, which is a spiritual novel. It is a mystical novel because that was my area of interest when I began right after my class 12th. To talk about my journey as a writer, I always loved reading. And I used to love reading mysteries. That was what really attracted me. And I think the biggest mystery is why we are born. What is the purpose of human life? So I began researching into that after dabbling into various kinds of mysteries. And I began reading a lot of spiritual texts and talking to various Mahatmas, Sadhus, Swamijis. And particularly, for instance, I read the Raj Yoga and the Gyan Yoga penned by Swami Vivekanand ji. And then I started dabbling in spiritual practices myself. And one particular practice I would like to point out, which I found to be very significant, was the practice of Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga as expounded by Lahari Mahasya, and then it was propagated all over the world by Yogananda ji. So I have been indulging in a lot of spiritual practices and also reading a lot of texts about spirituality and doing research. So the result of that was my first novel, Maya, to answer your question. And Maya took me 10 years to write because I was searching for the meaning of life. I was searching for the confluence of the material and the spiritual, the ancient and the modern, the existential angst which all of us have. So that is the attempt in this particular novel to search for that. So yes, so that was my first novel. So I think I have answered your question. So
after you wrote this novel, did you find any satisfaction or answers to what life is all about?
Yes, I did. And in fact, if you ask me that what I found about Maya is all about how we can create a balance, that while living in this world of Maya, we stay detached from it. We stay detached, and yet we do our dharma, again with a sense of detachment, while being grateful and happy to the Almighty. And the most important thing is to allow your inner talent to flower to its utmost, and how you can serve humanity.
To be true to oneself.
To be true to oneself, and also how it can be of service to others. So this is what I found, and then I thought that I must work on bringing out my creativity. And then to answer your question that how from Maya I came to writing murder mysteries, because that is my first love. And so I got back to mysteries, and particularly murder mysteries. And here I would like to tell you that it's not really murder mystery, it's about challenging your brain. It's about creating a puzzle and then seeing whether the reader can unravel the puzzle. So that's what it's all
That's the
about.
exciting part about
Yes,
your books.
that's the exciting part.
It really gets your book ticking, because after every murder, she'll say, normally the writer stops there, but you articulate what the reader would ask. Why was he murdered? Like the one who drowned in the dam.
Kali River.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did he jump in? Was he murdered and thrown in? Did he commit suicide? And you think this is a scientist, a serious scientist just going for a walk. So that way, yes, you've got that, you've got a very detailed kind of mind, and which makes the brain tick.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the objective. I'm a researcher at heart.
I can make out, yes.
So there is one thing, I think everybody will agree with this point, that, murder mystery as such, it's something which is quite real. It's not, something unreal. We frequently, read it in the newspaper, but there's an unfortunate part in it that we mostly forget. We read the news and then we forget the news. So here, ma'am, as you have written, and when I was reading it, there was many, certain things which they were unknown to me, and the unknown truths, I should say, unknown realities, I should say.
That's right.
So tell us something about it, that how come it came in your mind to disclose those realities and disclose those hidden truths, maybe. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Actually, this novel is a cautionary tale about the covert conspiracy which is going on, which aims to weaken India from within. So we are facing not just external threats, we are facing internal threats also. And we must take cognizance of this fact, which is why I've written this novel. And this novel has been inspired by true events. What happened was that one day I read a news report about the mysterious, unexplained deaths of nuclear scientists and defense personnel. And when I read that report, I was simply blown away. It just caught my attention. And I thought, wow, here are these deaths about which nobody's talking about, nobody's worried that our nuclear energy is under threat, ISRO is under threat, the defense sector is under threat, and nobody's doing anything about it. So the more I researched, the more facts I found. And I thought I must write a book about it. And so that is the genesis of the book. And here I would like to bring out just about, let's say from 95 to 2016, there have been 73 unexplained suicides in Bark alone, which is the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, which is cause for concern. And I have talked about 11 murders or deaths which happen, which are simply mysterious.
And I like the way you slowly hint the reason behind it.
Yes.
It's so eerie because it's real. It's very interesting the way you slowly introduce the common factor about this mysterious deaths.
That's right. And I would just like to bring about one particular incident which really is shocking for me. And I don't know how the Ministry of Defense and our security forces have just shut it as a routine accident. What happened was, this was I think in 2013, the chief engine room officer of Arihant is India's first nuclear submarine. Now for our defense, we need the triad of nuclear attack capability, which is the air, the land, and the sea, right? So we already have the Agni ballistic missiles and we have the fighter jets. But it is the sea, underwater attack capability, which is crucial for our security. So we have Arihant, which is the first nuclear submarine. So the chief engine room officer and the chief engineer who worked in the engine room of Arihant nuclear submarine, both of them were poisoned and their bodies were placed on the railway tracks next to Vizag docks, Visakhapatnam docks. And the idea was that the train would run over them and nobody would know that the death is suicide or accident or what. But it so happened that somebody saw those bodies on the tracks. And then it was found that it was a case of poisoning. So this is clear that it's murder, and that too of Arihant nuclear submarine. What are we doing about it? I am absolutely shocked. Similarly, many senior scientists of Kaiga nuclear power plant and Bark have died under mysterious circumstances, all of which are true. So all those things I have brought out in my novel.
How did you choose this title?
Oh, that's very interesting. So I had picked up such a complex plot, which I think we will unravel now. There are many more threads to it, and I was wondering how to bring it all together. And it so happened I went to China. And in China, I went to Hangzhou. And in Hangzhou, so whatever has been described in this novel, everything is true. The going through the different continents, whether it is Boston in America, or it is China, or wherever. So everywhere I have been. So it is like a first person, real life account. So I had visited the Leifeng Pagoda, which is the title of the book. And over there, I saw many things. And later on, when I was plotting it, the idea struck me that, okay, this can be the secret, and this is the plot, I would say the crucial aspect of the plot around which everything will revolve. So that's how I fictionalized it.
I found it very interesting because I'll just share trivia. When we had this Lit Fest in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, there was an ex-Lieutenant General retired, and one day while we were having breakfast, he said, I don't know why we are so scared of Pakistan. It's China we should be aware of. And then when I read your book, I said, wow, And there was another nephew, actually my nephew's friend, who went to study linguistics in Beijing. And when he went to the university, he went to the library, and he saw Tawang was part of China. That's the upper part of Arunachal. And northeast, where I come from, is occupied territory. They already, they think it's theirs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he got it corrected. That's why your book is very eerie, and I know that. I remember when I was still a very young girl in school when the Chinese aggression took place. Yeah.
Yes, so here, as ma'am actually mentioned the correct thing, and I would like to read from chapter 14, where Roy particularly talking about this, the battle between developed and developing countries. So, of course, we as commoners, masses, we know this battle happening in war fields, but we hardly know that this constant battle, it's going on between developed and developing countries, So it's when Roy said, I would like to read, if you allow me.
Yes.
So Roy paused. So, and he says, I will only say one thing. The developed countries never wanted us to have an energy efficient method of developing energy. Hence, our progress related to thorium needed to be scuttled at that point of time. So tell us something about it that.
Here Roy is one of the characters. He's a disgruntled character from our own DRDO. And he is talking about various suspicious things. Now, as far as the energy needs of India is concerned, it would be best if we go in for thorium as the source of nuclear energy, because India has got vast reserves of thorium. About 25% of the world's thorium reserves are in India, and it is a much better resource than uranium, because uranium we have to import, right? And what happened was Homi Bhabha was the first person who said that we must use thorium for generating electricity via our nuclear reactors. It was
scientists who died were actually working on this.
Yes. So it is the advanced heavy water reactor, so we are in a race to develop this kind of energy. And Homi Bhabha died in a mysterious, very suspicious plane crash over Switzerland. And also at that point of time, Homi Bhabha, who was the father of nuclear energy, he had sort of assured Nehru that we can develop the nuclear bomb. So we must try to understand that nobody had wanted us at that point of time to develop the nuclear bomb. Nobody wanted us to have a ready source of energy, because then we would become developed. So I will tell you another very eerie thing, or a strange thing, that there were 4 assassination attempts on Nehru also. three of the attempts occurred in Maharashtra. Two were in Mumbai, one was in Nagpur, and one was in North-West Frontier Province. So there was this constant, I would say, gaze upon our development in science, technology, defense sectors, and a conspiracy afoot by CIA, by the Russians, by the Chinese, that don't allow them to develop, whether in terms of energy sources or defense sectors or anything.
And it's continuing now. Also.
Yes, it's continuing
and her books
now.
is about that.
Yeah, yeah. So in this context, I would also like to point out the very famous case of Nambi Narayan, who was a senior scientist with ISRO. He, along with his colleague, S. Sasikumaran, they were trapped, they were honey trapped in a false honey trap case, and they were actually developing the cryogenic engine technology for our satellite launch vehicle. So at that time, the CIA did not want us to develop that technology. So actually what had happened at that point of time, this is the time of 1990 to 1994. So what had happened was that we wanted that engine. So Russia had sent 7 cryogenic engines to India. Then America got upset about it, and America told Russia that we are going to do an embargo unless you stop the transfer of technology. So normally when the engines are transferred, there is also a transfer of technology. So the engines were transferred, but there was no transfer of technology. Then Nambi Narayan and his colleague, they were brilliant scientists, they studied the existing engine and started developing their own indigenous cryogenic engines. And then this honey trapping thing happened, and they were jailed. And of course, now they have been buried. But you see all these subversive elements and covert activities are happening about which there should be a debate. We should talk about it, which is why I've written the book.
So yes, so it seems that in the book when I was reading, of course, a lot of things you have written, and it seems that, of course, a lot of research you must have done. So how long this book took?
Oh, so yeah, I mean, it takes me many years. Like I just told you, Maya took me 10 years to write, 2 years to publish. The fastest book I've written took me 3 years. It was a degree in death. It took me 3 years. So yeah, it took me many years because this book is a lot of research, as you can probably make out from what I'm telling you. And perhaps you can see I'm so passionate and fired up about all this stuff here. So yeah, I mean, it took me several years to write the book and a couple of years to get published because I was so concerned about these things.
Yeah, so as you said, this concern, so it's, it is visible because when I was it's just, again, it's a curiosity question because you come from army background, your father was an army man and your husband is an army man, you are also professor, HOD in Indian Military Academy. So it seems that when I was reading it that, these things we hardly bother, common men hardly bother. Okay, this is a story. But it seems there's a sense of responsibility,
Well, in the Northeast, we are more than bothered because they're right there.
Correct.
So the Prime Minister now is trying his best to actually develop states like Arunachal, for example, as much as possible. So that because they're right there, and if we neglect them, they may just tell the Chinese come in, not knowing what they're in for, So more than like in the other parts of India, it's like a very minor problem. But for us, it's very, very creepy. And you don't know if there are Chinese lurking around because there are certain tribes, like for example, the Arunachalis or the Mizos who look so Chinese. But the Chinese who have settled since after the British Raj, they have become very, very Indianized. And I think to get involved and very assimilated with the people there, they've turned into Christians. Because I'm not a Christian, but most of the people there, 90% of them are Christians. But it's very, very eerie for us because they're just really a breath away, So I'm so glad you're writing this book. And if there's anyone else who can share something interesting, we'll throw it open to the house and then we'll come back to Ruby. Is there anyone else who would like to share some stories and talk about the book? Yes, please. Can you give the mic to her, please? And then there's a girl behind you after that.
I think your book is a trilogy, right?
Yes,
This is a third one.
That's right.
Yeah, but then I also understand that this book is, standalone. I mean, one enjoys reading it, without reading the previous
Definitely,
two,
definitely.
right? And I also understand that there is I think you have a protagonist. Professor Shantanu Basu, right?
Bose.
Yeah, Bose, Basu and Bose, same, yeah. So Bose, yeah, it's a Bong character. So how did you get this idea, and how did you, it's very tacky and very interesting.
Okay,
yeah. Can you tell us something?
A quick background, you wanted to know about my journey as a writer, so I'll just connect the two things.
And one more question I have.
Okay.
I'll throw both to you, yeah.
Yes.
I think, I was just reading, because I haven't read the book, but I was reading reviews, I was reading summaries, and where I found, somewhere they mentioned that, because you said it's a true story.
Yes.
So they were also contemplating on murdering Nehru.
Yes.
Which you have mentioned.
Yes.
I would like to know that bit also.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was very much for nuclear research.
Exactly. So I'll just take the Nehru thing, because I just said it a little while ago that there were 4 assassination attempts on Nehru, and I went into the archives, the Gettysburg Times, etc., and found this research, and there's been a blow-by-blow account of the attempt on him. So definitely the powers, the developed nations did not want us to have nuclear self-sufficiency, nor did they want us to have the nuclear bomb. Which is why there was an attack. I mean, this is my conjecture. I may be wrong. So there were definitely 4 attempts on Nehru's life. So to answer that question, and a detailed description of one of the attempts I've given in my novel, the first chapter, it's about the attempt on Nehru when he goes to Nagpur to inaugurate a particular session. And there is an attempt on Nehru's life, which is 100% true. I got it from the archive newspapers. So yeah, that's 100% true. And even the other attempts, what I have mentioned, they are also 100% true. Everything taken from newspapers. All my research has been done from books, newspapers, archival material. So I've spent hours and hours, burned the midnight oil. You see the dark circles under my eyes. Otherwise, I would have been prettier.
Pretty.
So I'm just fishing for compliments.
So all the
Why not?
Because I'm here, so it's getting too serious.
What about Shantanu then? How did you find
Yeah, so Shantanu is so good looking, and he's suave, and he's this well-traveled man. And he's the world's foremost nano expert. So what happened was, cutting back to, I'm a fan of Agatha Christie. And Agatha Christie's protagonist is Hercule Poirot, who works with the grey cells.
Far from handsome.
Not handsome, yes, but I had to make my protagonist handsome. He had to hold me in the book, at least. So incidentally here, I would just like to tell you that I was recently honored at the International Agatha Christie Festival in England. And they invited me because all my books... Thank you so much. So they invited me as the international writer in residence because all my books have got the typical Agatha Christie tropes of a closed environment, an intellectual detective, multiple suspects, lot of red herrings, and the proverbial twist in the tale. So I don't know how come from England they found me, they read one of my books, and they realized my plots are like that of Agatha Christie, so they invited me, and I was so honored and so privileged to be there.
This is your ninth book?
Yes, this one is my 9th book, the Leifeng.
This month, November.
This was published in September. I unveiled it at the Agatha Christie Festival. Yes, so I felt on top of, I was walking 10 feet above the ground. And I need that height also. Yeah, so I think I still have to, so when I wrote A Degree in Death, I needed an intellectual protagonist, a detective. So, and I know it was a sort of a cliche to choose a Bengali person, but Amartya Sen and all these people were in my mind, and many Bengalis are very cosmopolitan. They've studied abroad, lived abroad. So then I thought, I borrowed a trope to create a Bengali detective, but I made him very suave, very handsome, and very intellectual, and he relies on the grey cells, and he's philosophical as well. So I would say he's my alter ego.
He's a dream man.
Yeah. So my 3 novels are in a series, A Degree in Death, in which he appears for the first time. And then there is No Illusions in Xanadu, in which again he solves a series of murders. And then this is a Dan Brown, John Grisham kind of thriller, in which he goes across continents and solves. So in that sense, it is a series, but all 3 are standalone books. The only common thing is the detective.
Can you
Hello.
ask question?
Hello, good evening, everyone. She's a brilliant person, and you've got a very critical mind and analytical thinking coming from a psychologist. My question to you is about Nambi effect, that's Madhavan's movie Rocketry, was based upon him getting set up. And I was just Googling about the bark, few committal suicides that have taken place. There's a level of expectation when you're a scientist. You have to be hushed up about a lot of things, cut off from your family, which also leads to a lot of stress, anxiety, which also may have led to committal suicides, which, if you review them in the past. And you were talking about Nambi, the effect.
Yes.
What I want to ask you is that, what is your take on suicide? Because from a psychiatric point of view, those who have a very, very superior intellect, and they are very, very, I would say, quiet and introverted about things, some things trouble them and they land up with mental problems. So what's your take on that? Would you have thought about that and written your book, or taken those few points in mind?
Yes, that's a very good question. Now, first, let me thank you for labeling me as mentally stable. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I appreciate it. And of course, that I have a critical mind. Thank you so much. So, yes, when I was researching, so there is one particular incident of a lady who committed suicide in Bark, and that is kind of wishy-washy, which is why when I was mentioning all the cases, I mentioned a clear-cut case of these 2 scientists of engineers of Arihant, where there is no doubt at all that it is not a suicide, right? Now, coming to the question of suicide, certainly it is a very serious thing, and scientists, or you would say any intellectual person, tends to go into his mind too much, and he tends to isolate himself in doing research. So therefore, I know for a fact that many scientists, many people who pursue PhDs do become a little unhinged. So yeah, so that happens because they're so introverted, they're so much into their work, and human interaction is really required for one to be stable. So yes, so too much focus into their research does give them a tendency towards suicide. So there could be a few cases, but again I ask you, 73 suicides, is that possible within Bark? Within the time frame of 95 to 2016, I don't think so. And some of the cases, like another senior scientist, M. Iyer, who was at Bark, he was found dead. He was working on some crucial technology related with thorium. He was found dead inside his house, which was locked from inside. And later on, the postmortem said that there was intense hemorrhaging inside the brain. And there were no fingerprints, nothing found at all. So it's really strange. This particular case also is very strange. The other case which Bijoya ji also talked about, that senior scientist having disappeared and his body was found in the Kali River. Again, I want to point out, his body was found upstream. Now, if you commit suicide and you jump, your body will go downstream. How come his body was lodged upstream? So that is very, very strange. So there are many strange things I've talked about, like, for instance, even the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri. When his body came, there were blue marks and there were injury marks on his abdomen. Why was a postmortem not done? And why was he lodged in a hotel so far away from the city center, where the hospital was so far away? So these are questions which we need to think about. Sarabhai, who died of a heart attack when he was at the top of his game, no heart issues, nothing. So we need to understand these top people, what's happening. So my purpose is to raise the questions, think about it, talk about it, and take cognizance of it. Don't just shut every case. Oh, it's okay, and we
Think you'll get into trouble.
Oh God, I hope not.
No, I hope not, yes.
I
There's
hope
someone here, yes, there's someone here who's been to the pagoda as well. And did you, I think Dipankar, did you feel, I mean, like it's such an eerie book, and I hope all of you will read it for the information, the research, and the way she's written it. But did you find it eerie enough to have that kind of climax that she's...
Well, I have to read your book to discover, how it builds up and culminates at the pagoda, I presume. But let me share that you've been to Hangzhou, and Hangzhou has a very ancient connect with India. In fact, when Mao Zedong took over the reins in 1949, and the communists thereafter, the Red Revolution, they destroyed a lot of monasteries in the 60s. The Cultural Revolution is what they call it. So Mao Zedong paid his obeisance at another similar monastery called Wu Taishan. He went there, we say Matha Tekna. Before he took over, it's ironical because communism says no religion. And the other monastery is Hangzhou, the Leifeng, the Lingyan Sea temple. And that is another place which the communists made sure, Mao Zedong, that nobody should be touching. The Red Guards should not be destroying. Why was that? Because of the strong Indian connect. They've got a mountain there. It's called Fei Lai Fei. And Fei Lai Fei, Chinese word, it means the peak that came flying from afar, from the west. And west for Chinese civilization for millenniums has meant India. Like west for us these days, we talk of Europe and US. And why was that? Because this peak was none other than the Gridha Kota, near Rajgir, where the first Buddhist conference was held, of the monks. So it's a very revered place. And when some Indian monks were in Hangzhou, so they thought, oh, this looks like that, and so it became that. So I don't know, your story has all those linkages between India, China, playing back and forth.
Absolutely, because I went to Hangshu. That was the place I went.
Yes.
And I visited the Lingyan temple. The temple which came, the mountain which came
Fei Lai
flying.
Fei.
Yes,
Yes.
Leifeng. I went there.
Yes.
And I've been to the Leifeng Pagoda. Then from there I went to Beijing. And
Yes.
I climbed the Great Wall of China. And there is where an attack on Professor Shantanu happens. So everything I've been there.
So the
and
nuclear secrets, did they come flying from the mountain, from the Chinese
You
trying
ha- you
to
have to read-
surreptitiously
you have to read the
disturb?
book.
Is it something of that kind in your book?
You have to read the book
I
to
have to
find
read
out.
the book. It's for sure. I mean, after this connect, I'm sure.
Must read the book. It's very
with all
exciting.
the
I must say, all the places being described in the book so well. I've been never to these places. In fact, I've not heard about these places, but it seems that I was, visiting these places and having the,
I talk about the Fei Lai Fei and on the Trail of Buddha journey to East, but those are art architectural.
Yeah. So I've
this
also
is detective.
described about how the Chinese have made Buddha their own. So
Yes.
I went to that museum.
Syncretization of Buddha.
It's very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Buddha is now theirs, and they don't like to talk about India at all. They don't like that Buddha is actually from India. So I was so surprised. I went to a museum there, and I saw the female Buddha. Yeah. Can you imagine? And I saw Buddha with all these Chinese warriors, statues of Chinese warriors, and they told me these Chinese warriors are there to protect the Buddha. And I was like, didn't Buddha talk about peace? What is happening? So then, all these things about Buddha I saw over there, which were completely, different from what our concept of Buddha is. So they have completely made Buddha as their own because they didn't have anything and they don't like Indians. Another side thing I want to tell you. I talked to many of them and they like the Pakistanis, but they don't like the Indians. So they don't have a good impression of Indians at all. So
Why is that?
why is that? Maybe, this is my take on it. Maybe.
I think I'll give an alternative on the last point only.
Okay,
At the political level, what you were saying is absolutely right. And since you're teaching at IMA, you can't be more correct politically. But at a level of society, at the level of individuals, in all my travels, they look at Indians, a Chinese man with awe. They say, oh, Yindu. Yindu is a phrase which was coined by Huenshan, Zhuanzang, who visited India in 7th century. And at an individual level, like, I entered a shop in Chengdu, for example. Oh, Yindu. And the shop, it was an arty
Which
kind of a
year
shop.
was this?
This was 2014. I was there from 12 to 15 as a diplomat. We can't do, and she presented me a complimentary copy of a beautiful art catalog and an umbrella, much at my insistence that please don't do this, I want to purchase this. No, nothing doing. So at an individual level, you know, like I said, even Mao Zedong was a Buddhist at heart. Why would he go and, you know, go to Wu Tai Shan? And Wu Tai Shan is a monastery. It's one of the Char Dhams in China, which is mentioned in Sanskrit texts of 5th century. But anyways, politically, well, with the China-Pakistan economic corridor, they call themselves weather in, you know, friends and all weather. So that's exactly what you're saying. That's
Thank
with
you.
the compulsions of
We
Belt
need to
and Road.
conclude the session, and I think we will open one of the
Yes,
books.
so there's one last question because again, it's very interesting. I really want to know the answer. So, ma'am, in the last chapter, you have displayed a prime minister. You know, you didn't disclose the name of the prime minister, and he's very active, I mean, hardworking, this and that. And I was just thinking, because I know your journey a little bit, and I know you were a journalist, and you have taken interview of Modi ji also when he was a general secretary. So tell us, who is the prime minister?
So the thing is that, yes, I was a journalist for 5 years before I got into academics, and I was the regional correspondent for Mirror Today. And what had happened was that the newly formed state of Chhattisgarh, Arjun Singh had come. He was the then HRD minister, and along with him, Modi ji had come, who was the general secretary. So I had interviewed Arjun Singh, which was the main interview, and then I interviewed Modi ji also. And I found him to be very tough, a no-nonsense kind of a person who just shoots from the hip and who talks in a very straightforward way, and who talks about logic and things that should be done. So even then I got a sense of that. And when I was writing this novel, because the finale is mind-boggling, it involves many things, which if you read the book, you'll find out. So I needed a sketch of a prime minister. And truth be told, I did have Modi ji in my mind when I was penning down.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you. So on that note, we end the session. Thank you for being with us, and congratulations and all the best.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Shachi.
If I could add, it's a very, very brave book. It looks like a very brave book. I am yet to read the book, and I will be reading this book. Ma'am, we would request you all to please launch the book. I would request Bijoya ma'am to present a token of appreciation on behalf of Valley of Words to Ruby ma'am and also to Shachi ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I would request Mona ma'am to present a token of appreciation to Bijoya ma'am. Ruby ma'am, could I please request you to do the honor on behalf of us? Thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure.
Thanks a lot. I guess we have the next session lined up at 5:30, and it's a valediction session at the plenary stage in the open area.